Hello guys. So, in continuation with my last lecture, in the last lecture what we did was we derived the equation of motion in body fixed coordinate system, and that we called as Euler equations. And then as you know, Euler equations can be very difficult to handle, because to resolve these equations in body fixed coordinate system, we need to know the body fixed coordinate system, and it turns out that the whole aim of the project is to find the body fixed coordinate system. Okay, so, it is basically circular in the nature. Now, there are some cases where it can be useful, and we considered one of them as a motion of a torque free symmetric top, and you can apply it to few more cases. One of the examples of torque free symmetric top would be, for example, earth, which also is spinning about itself, and it has a standard wobble about the north pole direction. Okay. In today's class, so what I am going to do in today's class is to discuss the standard problem of spinning top, and this is the toy that we play with when we are kids. And while solving this problem, what I am going to do is directly start from the Lagrangian, use that approach to derive the equations of motion. Okay. So, this is the today's topic. Fine. Now, look at this sort of idealized diagram. Here the body fixed frame, I have marked it as x, y, z, and the space fixed frame I have marked it as x prime, y prime, z prime. Now, remember, while doing all the calculation, I do not want to put primes everywhere. So, since we are going to work in body fixed coordinate system, I will use x, y, z for body fixed coordinate system. And now, you look at these diagram here, the meaning of heavy symmetric top is basically we are going to consider now the gravity. Okay. So, effect of gravity on the top. So, typically when this top is set spinning, you have this point of contact with the ground, and in this calculation we will assume that that point of contact is fixed. Of course, you can easily do this in the laboratory, even though when you actually play on the ground, the contact point dances around on the floor, but that is fine. We can actually deduce lot about this motion by assuming that the point here, the contact point is fixed, and then the center of mass of this body or of this top is distance L away from the contact point. Okay. Right. And that is why the gravity of course will act on it and give rise to torques in the system. Okay. So, this is not a torque free system, and the three angles here, the Euler angles, are also very easy to see. Once it has tilted, the axis of the top, which is z axis with respect to z prime, has an angle of theta. Then the nodal line, of course, you can take y and cross product of z and z prime, that will give me nodal line, and from nodal line to x and nodal line to x prime basically will define the two angles phi and psi. Now, by symmetric, what I mean is basically the top has a cylindrical symmetry, and that means two of the three principal momenta, they are going to be equal. Okay. So, conveniently I will choose the z, I mean we have chosen the z axis along the axis of the top, and the other two principal momenta I1 and I2 will be equal. Okay. Now, look at the Euler angles. When these Euler angles change, what kind of motion does it produce? So, typically when you play with the top is of course spinning really fast about its axis, and that is basically rotation about the z axis here, which is the axis of the top. And when you keep the other two angles free and just spin this top, that is basically motion where angle psi changes. So, it is a rotation in psi. So, when you talk about rotation in psi, that is rotation about z, and that is what we will call it as spin. Okay. The other one motion is when the body sort of entire body which is spinning about its axis also goes about in the circular motion roughly, that is called as a precession about the vertical or z prime, that is the precession there. And the third motion that happens is basically angle theta also can change, which means while spinning the axis tilts away from the z axis or z prime axis or goes closer to z prime axis. So, both are possible, and very commonly we see a motion where the top remains vertical, in which case of course, this theta would have become 0. Okay. So, these are the three motions that you have corresponding to 3 degrees of freedom, which are basically represented here using Euler angles. Okay. Now, we will also assume that the spin is of course, because you need enough spin for the torque to actually work. The Lagrangian of the system you can very quickly write. I am going to write this Lagrangian in the body fixed frame. Okay. So, in this case the kinetic energy will simply be I1 omega 1 square by 2 plus I2, but I2 is same as I1. So, I have written it as I1 into omega 1 square plus omega 2 square and plus of course, I3 omega 3 square by 2. What about the potential energy? The potential energy is entirely due to the mass, because there is a gravity acting downwards. So, the potential energy will be equal to mg into L cos theta, that is basically height above the ground, height of the center of mass above the ground. Okay. Now, what I want to do is basically simplify my kinetic energy term. The potential energy term is sufficiently simple anyway. Okay. So, I will go back again to few classes behind and bring a formula from there, where we wrote the components of instantaneous angular velocity in terms of body frame. Okay. And in terms of body frame, those were phi dot sin theta sin psi plus theta dot cos psi and so on. Okay. So, there is a omega 2 and omega 3, and this is what we will plug in here to simplify this. And once we do that, remember now our Lagrangian will come out to be Lagrangian of only of phi theta psi and corresponding rates, that is phi dot theta dot and psi dot. Okay. And once we have the entire Lagrangian in terms of theta psi phi, we can forget about which coordinate system we were really talking about. We only need to at the end figure out how psi phi and theta would change to give you the final motion. So, essentially the problem will be solved for phi, theta and psi. Okay. And in this case of course, we do not even have to worry about which coordinate system we are talking about. All that we have to do is make sure that I write the correct expression for kinetic energy. So, omega 1 square plus omega 2 square, look at the expression here. There is a sin psi here, there is a sin psi here, there is a cos psi here and there is a cos psi here. So, when I square omega 1 and square omega 2 and add them, the cross term will go away, only the square terms will remain, and the kinetic energy would simply turn out to be half I1 phi dot square, that is basically coming from here, and sin square theta, and then you have sin square plus cos square of psi, but that will become 1, and here for theta dot also cos square plus sin square will become 1. So, the first part actually simplifies neatly as phi dot square sin square theta plus theta dot square, and this term I will write it as it is half I3, and then there is a psi dot plus phi dot cos theta. Okay. Now, we have Lagrangian. So, Lagrangian would be your kinetic energy term minus the potential energy term. So, here is the simplified version of the kinetic energy, and then there is a minus of potential energy. Now, before you jump into writing down all the equations, I will look at what the constants of motion of this particular, If you can do first integrals out of the Lagrangian, that would be really great, because then that simplifies the problem considerably. So, look at this Lagrangian, you immediately see that the variable psi or coordinate psi and phi, they do not appear in this Lagrangian. So, they are straight away cyclic coordinates, and corresponding generalized momenta, they will be conserved. It also happens that the Lagrangian does not have time explicitly built into it. That means, the total energy must be constant. Okay. So, I have 3 constants of motion there, one corresponding to one generalized momentum corresponding to psi, then one for phi, and then energy. Okay. So, in some sense I already have done 3 integrals, 3 first integrals have been obtained. Now, I only have to solve the first order differential equation. If you had written Lagrange's equations, you would of course come to a point where you have second order differential equations, but we do not have to really go there. So, corresponding to psi, the generalized momentum would be p psi, which is partial derivative of L with respect to psi dot, and calculate that. There you are, psi dot only appears here. Okay. So, I will write it as I 3, and of course, there is a factor of 2, and it will be psi dot plus phi dot cos theta. Okay. And you recognize what is this? This is nothing but omega 3 again. Okay. So, I will write it as I 3 omega 3, and that must be constant of motion, and I should equate it to some constant. I am going to conveniently write it as I 1 a. So, basically product I 1 a, I 1 anyway is a constant, I 1 a is a constant. So, I am going to express that constant as I 1 times a. This also means omega 3 remains constant. Okay. But wait, omega 3 is not such a innocent quantity, because that is already sum of psi dot plus phi dot cos theta. So, whenever in fact all these 3 quantities would be changing in time, but essentially keeping omega 3 constant, that does not help much, as we will see later. Here is one more. So, p phi is also conserved, p phi is conserved, calculate del L over del phi dot, I get one term from here and there is another term from there. Okay. So, let us write that. So, this is I phi 1 dot sin square theta, and from there I have I 3 cos theta, and then you have this phi dot plus psi dot plus phi dot cos theta, and that is omega 3. But anyway, I will equate all of this, you rewrite this so that you have phi dot into some constant phi dot into an expression and psi dot into an expression. Okay. So, I have separated the terms of phi dot and psi dot, equate this to a constant, and conveniently again I will call this constant as I 1 times b. Okay. So, essentially a and b are the constants which will decide your p phi and p psi. All right. Now, you look at these 2 equations. So, I have 2 equations, one is I 3 psi dot phi dot cos theta, and I have another equation. So, this equal to I 1 a, and I have another equation here, phi dot into something plus psi dot into something is equal to another constant I 1 b. Okay. These 2 equations look like simultaneous equations in phi dot and psi dot. So, I can simply use Cramer's rule to find the solution of this. So, find the solution for phi dot and psi dot. So, phi dot will become b minus a cos theta by sin square theta, okay, and psi dot will become I 1 by I 3 into a minus cos theta into b minus a cos theta by sin square theta. This is basically just solving these 2 equations. For treating phi dot and psi dot as unknowns, you get this. Now, you look at these 2 equations. What does this tell you? In fact, if I know theta, I immediately would know phi dot, and I immediately would know psi dot, because other than theta, these are b and a are constants decided by the initial conditions. So, if I know theta of t, I know phi dot of t, and then I can integrate for phi. Similarly, if I know theta here, apart from theta, everything else B and A are initial conditions, I1 and I3 are anyway constants of the problem. So, the complete motion will be known if I find theta as a function of t. The moment I have theta as a function of t, we now have a full solution. Okay. And then I can of course integrate this. So, psi dot psi will be integral of this expression and theta will be known quantity. So, I need now third equation which is in theta, which finally when solved will give theta of t, and for that I am going to use the third constant of motion, which is basically energy. So, let us start by looking at energy. In this case, of course, we already know this result. The kinetic energy is homogeneous function of the velocities, generalized velocities. So, and there is no explicit dependence on time. So, the energy simply becomes T plus V, and that we know how to write, that we can very quickly write down. The kinetic energy term anyway we had derived, all that will happen is there is a minus sign here for potential, that becomes a plus sign. Out of this we know that psi dot and phi dot somehow conspire together to keep omega constant. So, whatever goes in this bracket actually is a constant. So, what I am going to do is I am going to define new constant here E prime, and E prime you define it as E minus I 3 omega 3 square divided by 2. So, E prime also must be a constant because omega 3 is a constant, and this of course, after expanding this bracket. So, I will write it as half I 1 theta dot square, and then you transfer all the terms to the along with psi dot. So, you get I 1 b minus a. So, we already have expression for phi dot, I have expression, I do not need expression for psi dot. So, expression for phi dot can be substituted there. So, now you have one equation in theta dot and theta alone. So, it is a differential equation, first order differential equation in theta. Okay. Fine, rearrange this a little. So, rearrange this by defining twice E prime by I 1 as alpha, then twice MGL by I 1 as beta. So, beta and alpha are now just constants, and then there is a which we will define as which already has been defined as p psi by I 1, and the other last one b as p phi by I 1. So, now you have just these 3 alpha, a and b, 3 constants which depend on initial conditions, because you are going to fix those initial speeds and total energy. Beta of course is just the constant of the body. So, it is mgl by I 1. So, everything is constant there. Now, write down the differential equation, rearrange the terms and write the differential equation in terms of these constants, and it just simply theta dot square is b minus a cos theta whole square divided by sin square theta plus beta cos theta must be equal to alpha. Okay. Fine. So, now that we have found this differential equation, I will go one step further, and I want to actually write this in terms of another variable, because I will get rid of this cos theta and sin theta as much as I can. So, let me make this substitution. Substitute u is equal to cos theta, then of course, minus sin theta theta dot is u dot, but now remember what is the range for u, what was the range for theta? Theta is our second Euler angle, which is angle between z and z prime. This angle basically can vary from 0 to pi. That means, our u value can change from minus 1 to plus 1. Only thing you have to remember is u is equal to minus 1 is theta is equal to pi, and u is equal to plus 1 is theta is equal to 0. So, basically if you take a top, the spinning top, and look at the top point of this, the top point basically makes an angle with a vertical. This angle changes from 0 to pi. When it does, u changes from 1 to minus 1, remember. So, keep that in mind. So, the range is minus 1. Now, if I substitute this and again do some small simplification, you can see that that sin square theta becomes 1 minus u square, then this beta cos theta becomes beta u, that alpha is come from other side, and then you have b minus a u whole square and u dot square. Okay. So, the simplification is very easy. Now, you look at this one, this particular equation, what does it look like to you? You remember when we were doing central field, central force problem, we came to r dot square is equal to something. This one exactly looks like that. It is a u dot square, and that must be equal to this quantity, which I am going to call as f u. Okay. So, I will write this as u dot square is equal to f u, then that f u, the function f, is of course negative of all these second and third term. So, that is basically alpha minus beta u into 1 minus u square minus b minus a u whole square. If I expand this, you see what you get, that is basically simple beta u cube minus alpha square plus a square into u. It is a cubic polynomial. Okay. So, the cubic polynomial would look something like this. We will analyze this in a moment. Now, for this cubic polynomial, look at what the first coefficient here of u cube is, that is beta. And what was beta? Beta is twice mgl by I1. This is a positive number. Okay. So, when u becomes very large, then of course, you can ignore these remaining terms. The polynomial behaves like u cube, okay, with a positive coefficient. That means, as r goes to infinity, u goes to infinity, what happens to f of u? As u goes to positive infinity, f of u must go to positive infinity, and u goes to negative infinity, f of u also goes to negative infinity. What does that mean? Cubic polynomial has at least 3 solutions. This says that there must be at least one solution to this problem. Okay. So, f u is equal to 0 must have at least one solution. But see, what must happen is this: for the problem, for this problem that we are talking about, u must be contained between minus 1 and plus 1. So, really speaking, we are interested in region between minus 1 and plus 1. Now, for this equation to have solutions, u dot square must always be positive, which means unless f u is positive, I do not have a physical solution, and yet my symmetric top or the spinning top spins, that is a physical system, which means I must have a, b and alpha chosen in such a way, those are basically the initial conditions that are being set, they must be set in such a way that somewhere between minus 1 and plus 1 there must be at least 2 solutions to f u is equal to 0 problem. Okay. That means, there must be at least 2 roots of f u between minus 1 and plus 1, and in that region f u becomes positive. So, your motion by virtue of this differential equation must remain restricted between u1 and u2, and that is why these 2 roots f u is equal to 0 roots are called as turning points. So, remember, u is cos theta. If u is restricted between u1 and u2, corresponding to u1 u2, there will be theta 1 and theta 2. Your motion is restricted as far as the theta coordinate is concerned, it is restricted between theta 1 and theta 2. Okay. That makes a big simplification once we know this. You can of course, show the presence of these two roots by also looking at what happens at f is equal to 1 and minus 1. Only thing that you have to notice is that f is equal to plus 1 and minus 1, the graph must be always negative. So, either there is one solution on the other side of plus 1 which we are not interested in, but for the physical motion to occur, my constants a, b and alpha must be such that there are at least two roots here, and then you have a, and of course, conveniently I have drawn these u1 u2 on one side of on the positive side of u axis, but that is not necessarily true. These two could be on the negative side too, which means normally we are used to looking at top which is on the ground, which makes an angle with vertical which is usually smaller than pi by 2, because when it becomes pi by 2 the top touches the ground. Okay. But if you are looking at a top which is only suspended from one point, it can actually go below the pi by 2 point and it also can hang. But normally when we talk about symmetric top we do not look at that, but this is possible. Okay. So, keep that in mind. So, now with this in our mind, let us try to analyze how the motion of symmetric top would look like, and that is where that is all we need to know. We do not need to actually finally solve for psi dot and phi dot. In this discussion I will just discuss the kind of motions that you are likely to get on the basis of the analysis that we have done here, and look at what will happen. Now, remember the expression for phi dot. Phi dot is basically b minus a u divided by sin square theta. I will write it as b minus a minus u divided by sin square theta. Okay. And now, look at one by one. In the first case, so you have these two turning points u 1 and u 2 which correspond to two angles theta 1 and theta 2. Now, what happens at these turning points? First of all, the body or the symmetric top drops from angle theta 1 angle theta 2 to theta 1 and back to. So, this motion will be happening, but at the same time phi tells you how the symmetric top is precessing about the vertical axis. Now, if b by a is greater than u 2, then you can see phi dot basically is given by b by a minus u, but u is always less than u 2, which means b minus a minus u is always a positive quantity. So, phi dot will be always positive, the angle phi will be monotonically increasing all the time. Okay. Now, what does that mean? It means something like this. So, if you look at the symmetric top and you look at the top point of it, so here there is a symmetric top which is formed by a cone and a tiny cylinder, and the top point is shown by this red dot. Okay. This red dot basically will trace out a curve, because we are really not interested in motion about the axis of the top, that is spinning. The remaining part is how the top moves or re-engages itself in the space. Now, what we know is phi dot is always greater than 0. So, when the top comes to this point, phi dot is basically the rate at which phi changes along this line. So, phi dot is positive, it will keep moving towards this. So, theta has gone to theta 1, phi dot keeps moving forward. So, the direction is this way. So, the direction here on this one I will show, here it will be this way, here also the phi dot direction is exactly in the same way. So, the motion of this top will look something like this. Basically, the top bobs between theta 1 and theta 2, and while it is bobbing between theta 1 and theta 2, it also goes around the vertical axis. And this of course looks little exaggerated, but this is the motion that we see very commonly in the standard spinning top. Okay. Now, go to the second case. What will happen in the second case? In the second case, suppose B by A lies between u1 and u2. Okay. Now, see what happens. If I substitute u2 in the expression of phi dot here, then I get a negative phi dot, and if I substitute u1 there, then I get positive phi dot. That means, from one turning point to another turning point, from one turning point to another turning point, the direction has reversed. Okay. So, while the top comes down here, I will show you the motion. While the top comes down here, the motion is downwards, it has turning point in theta, but after that what is going to happen is it is going to go up, and the phi dot also changes. Phi dot becomes 0 somewhere here, and then by the time it reaches theta 2, phi dot is actually, the top is going in the clockwise direction rather than anti-clockwise direction. So, this motion would look like this. So, the top goes at the bottom point, it will go in one direction, at the top point it will go in another direction. Okay. And somewhere in between these two motions, this also is a motion that we sometimes see. In between these two motions is the motion where you have B by A is exactly equal to u2. Okay, that is just one point. At that point, what will happen? Phi dot at u2 will be 0, and that means at theta 2, this phi dot is 0 and theta dot is also 0. There is actually a cusp there. Okay. The top will come to that point, and then momentarily the motion in the theta and phi direction will stop. So, it is a cusp, and then it restarts. Okay. This motion would look something like this. So, it goes, it momentarily stops there at the top point where there is a cusp, and then restarts the motion, and then depending on the torque it will of course go in that direction. Okay. At u1, remember, at lower point always the phi dot is positive. So, we know that phi dot always goes, the top always goes in one direction at the bottom point, but what happens at the top point is different. And this is the motion that we almost never see in the nature. When you are playing with the top, this is the motion that is very hard to find, because this is a very delicate one point balance in the initial conditions. So, you take a top, it is spinning, you simply slowly rest it on the fixed point and just let go, because you are letting go, your phi dot and theta dot both are 0, that sets your initial condition. But what happens in the in real world is basically it is losing its energy through contact point, through the friction at the contact point, and if it is losing energy, by the time it comes to the second cusp, the initial conditions have changed. So, sustaining this motion in the real world is very hard. Even if you do laboratory under control experiment, you will see these nutations, they will not last very long. It will immediately change back to either case 1 or case 2 depending on how the energy changes. Okay. And the most trivial case, which is when the two turning points, they are equal. When the two turning points are equal, u1 is equal to u2, theta cannot change, theta is fixed. What does that mean? There is a precision there, and that is a uniform precision now, and the system would simply and this motion is also very commonly seen before it degrades and the top falls down. Okay. So, these are basically various kinds of motion that your symmetric top can have, and look at the analysis, as a very brilliantly done analysis, and you can actually see the motion of the top without solving the problem all the way to the end. Okay. So, this is where I will end the discussion on rigid body dynamics. In the next week, we will start with the Hamiltonian formulation.